a lot of what drives us is a need to feel like we know and we understand. And a lot of that pseudo knowledge and understanding is really just our own ideas, but they make us feel safe and secure. And the thing that I would say about all different kinds of Buddhism is that it doesn't make you so safe and secure. In many ways, especially in Zen, but I think it really is all over the lineages. In many ways, either slowly or quickly, the rug is being pulled out from under us. Or the floor falls away and we don't know where to step. We don't know what to do. And if we can catch that moment before our mind takes over and recreates the rug so we don't fall down, we have one moment of not knowing and one moment of opening, and suddenly the world changes. Buddhism as a practice, especially the way we handle it, but Buddhism is not really something to understand. It's something to digest. It's something to experience. So 4 years after finding Big River Farm was the name of the community that I moved on to, both myself and my wife Sheridan, who's on the Zoom call here, we ended up down in Berkeley, California, but separately. And I ended up moving into Empty Gate Zen Center. And so I had been practicing Soto Zen for about 4 years. But again, it didn't mean that much to me as Soto Zen. I was just practicing Zen. I was doing meditation retreats. I was sitting every day. I would do a little bit of reading from Suzuki Roshi's book, or I read a few books early on, but I've never been drawn to Buddhist scholarship. What I'm drawn to is Buddhist practice. So in many ways, I didn't care whether it was Soto Zen or Rinzai Zen or Tibetan Buddhism or Theravadan. Those were just names. So, and it's likely true for most of us on this call that we end up with the group and the lineage that draws us in. And if you're lucky enough to have a lot of different choices, if you live in a place where there are many different styles of practice, we likely all we self-select into different groups to find the groups that we have some kind of affinity for. For me, it was, in many ways, it was meeting Zen Master Bon Soeng. I didn't care that he came from Korea. I didn't care what the name of his lineage was, but he embodied something that I was looking for. And he offered a practice and a way of life that he said, at least, would help lead in that direction. And that's what I was interested in. It's often said that Zen-style training is being thrown in the pool so you learn how to swim. Where maybe a Theravadan style or a Vajrayana style, as Tommy was describing it, is a little bit more step-by-step learning. In Zen, we talk about go right to the root. Don't be too worried about the leaves and the branches and the leaves. Go right to the root. But yet we live a life that has a lot of branches and leaves. And in our tradition, we talk a lot about correct function, correct situation, and correct life. So we're always trying to translate our deeply held practice experience into our lives. Pretty much all of Buddhism talks about, Buddhism doesn't have original sin, but what Buddhism does have is the separation of this world into self and other. And once we separate the world into self and other, we are in many ways in opposition to the world. There's my needs and there's the world's needs. And most all of us, there are very few who cannot do this. We generally put our needs above others. Buddhism teaches that that basic separation and that putting self above other is the origin of suffering. Because our self-centered view reifies, in many ways, the self that the self, which is a facade that we go about our life hiding behind. So when we ask the question, what am I? It's not really so much about what is that self that I've created as a facade. We're going right to the root. What is the source? What is this thing we call me? Where does it come from? Where does it go? What creates it? What is the conditioning around which it's all organized? And since Buddhism is a practice of liberation, how can we find our freedom? How can we get out from behind the facade to actually have a vibrant, alive experience of this life? So, that's not safe. Buddhism is not about safety. Safety is living behind the facade which protects me. Buddhism and awakening is about being alive and present and vulnerable in this very moment.